Hello, thanks for watching. I'm Jake from Ignite Minds, and Carol joins me here from Heart Spaces. And we want to talk to you about the new Circle program, which is part of the Cert 3 course here at Organisational Learning Australia. And also, it's a program we're developing for Ignite Minds educators. This concept was born by Carol, particularly the image that you see here. And we want to talk today with you and using the wisdom that we have in Carol to find out what this circle time is all about from a big level, and then break it down into the parts to see what makes up a holistic circle time program for early childhood. And then we'll go deeper and add in a theme or an idea and work out how we can bring out a circle time routine using that theme. So, hi, Carol. How are you?
Hello, Jake. I'm fine. I'm interested that you said wisdom, and I just read what Rudolf Steiner said about wisdom, so maybe this will put it all in the right context. Wisdom is crystallized suffering.
Crystallized.
So,
Well,
yeah,
crystallized sounds nice.
yes,
There's a crystal of suffering. Mm.
it's crystallized through lots of blood, sweat, and tears, which actually can be fun. I actually like getting sweaty and bloody and crying, so that's all good.
Are you saying that over the years, sort of 40 years of
Yes,
educating, there's been, I mean, this has
exactly.
evolved and mistakes have been made and adjustments come about and insights had, yeah, to come to this.
Yes, and I think, you know, what I try to do always is to distill everything because I've had so many experiences, so many things that didn't work, so much that did work, and I'm constantly learning. So when I come up with a diagram like this, it's been years and years of saying, okay, so what are the essentials? No matter where you are, what country, what land, what season, whoever you are, however unique you are in your own way, is this a kind of framework that will support you and just remind you to look for things, yeah, when you're busy? You
Yeah.
might be someone who just loves music and dancing, and then you realize, maybe the children need some conversation or some humor, or, yeah. So this is really to remind us about all the possibilities, and not that you have to use everything every time, but you can look at it and say, I think I'll do some rhymes today. That looks like a fun thing to do, or
Sure.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And because we're talking about the circle routine, which is quite common in a lot of childcare settings. I remember when I did my placement at a childcare centre, the room leader called out to the educator, said, "Oh, have you done circle today?" And she said, "Oh, no, okay, quick." And she gathered the kids around, and it was a bit ad hoc. There was no gathering song. It just sit the kids down. All right, what song do you want to do today, kids? And there were like three songs: Twinkle Twinkle, If You're Happy and You Know It, and another one. I can't remember.
Of
And then she's
course.
like, okay, is everyone happy now? Okay, we've done the circle. Good. Let's go on with our day. And I felt, I was studying. Oh yeah, I just completed your course, so I knew I completed the Nourishing Early Childhood course, in which you go into creating circles quite deeply. And so
Mhm.
I knew there was more possibilities to be had in a circle time, but
Yeah.
that this educator hadn't had the opportunity that we have in exploring it to this level. So I think
Yeah.
this is really wonderful that you've come up with this diagram which represents the image of the circle so beautifully, and whilst maintaining all the key elements or ingredients that create a circle time routine. So can you just run us by why you believe the circle time routine is so important in early childhood?
Yeah, that's great, Jack. And I just want to say that circles are not an invention of Steiner education at all. Circles are the most traditional and ancient way of people getting together, celebrating, doing rituals, being a community. So it's very ancient. And actually, the nursery school movement, before it became apparent that it could be used even in Steiner schools when they developed, the nursery school movement came up with circles. So they obviously understood something about the tradition of getting everybody together. When you're in a circle, you're all equal. You're all seeing each other. You can see each other. It's a time for dialogue and conversation. There's no dominating voice. And so it's a time where we can see each other, where it's whole, like the sun or the earth. The circle is the most whole thing you can be. So it's where all is one, but within that oneness, there are individuals forming the chain. So you can also see it as a chain, and that as long as we're all connecting in the chain, the circle is whole and held. So we all have equal responsibility as well as equal opportunity. So that's the idea of a circle, and that's the time. If that's the case, then that's the time when the children who are playing all day, doing all kinds of things, come together and feel like they're part of a community that they belong to. So it's very central in terms of belonging. I belong in this circle. And I love the certain things that have developed. I've seen it in the Steiner movement. I haven't seen it outside, but where Johnny's playing out there. It's always Johnny, isn't it?
Yeah, Johnny.
Tabu, Nkosi. Anyway, it's always Johnny playing out there.
Right.
And you say, Johnny, there's a space just waiting for you. So, that idea that actually Johnny has a space in that circle and it's waiting for him to come, I think is really a lovely idea that the circle isn't whole until we're all there. And obviously to do it in that kindly, friendly way. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Yeah, sorry,
yes.
go on.
Yes, and I just want to say that when traditional societies get together, they know exactly why they're there. They're celebrating a death, or they're celebrating a birth, or they're harvesting. So there's a theme, there's a central theme. So if you look in the center of the circle, it's like the sun, and there's a star in the middle. That's the central idea. Why are we here today? And that's for every educator to discover or uncover. Why are we here today? So that's your guiding sun for the whole circle. And you, I know, work very strongly, and so do I, with seasons. So obviously the season will be in the center. And what about it? Where is it? Is it Wurundjeri? Is it Anglo? What's the quality? What's the taste of it? And what's the need in terms of even the children? Do the children need to feel this or that today? So, yeah, so that's like a basic, essential idea.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. And yeah, so I love how the key surrounding or overarching themes here, we've got the creating community through circles. So I find in my family daycare that the day doesn't really start until we've done our circle. We open at 8 a.m. and children arrive, and they're often playing separately or in little groups together until they're playing well, but just separately until like 9:30 or 10. And yeah, we do our morning circle at 10 o'clock, and that's sort of like the bell ringing, the day starting. We've all come together, we say good morning to each other, and we sing songs, and that becomes what we're talking about down here, the breathing circle. I really noticed that when we've sung songs together, like everyone joining in, the singing attunes our breathing. So we become, we're all breathing together in one because we're all singing the same song. And that creates this rhythmic movement between us all. And then when we combine that with movement later or dance, then it's a similar sort of feel. And then whatever we do for the rest of the day, we're doing it all together. So we're all washing our hands together. We're all going to the park together. We're all playing at the park together. We all have lunch together, have a story and a sleep together. It's much more harmonious the rest of the day, which is important as an educator looking after up to 7 children, that there's not 2 groups of children racing off and playing and 2 other children who are hungry or 2 other children who need the bathroom. We sort of synchronize everything so we can work efficiently and harmoniously throughout the day. So I find the circle is really important. It is a really important part of my daily routine. And yeah, we'll move into adding into the circle this central concept, idea, or theme. because what you and I are working on at the moment is exciting. It's a circle time program, which works through the months, so that there would be 12 circle time programs, which will help educate students in the Cert 3 program and become a resource for Ignite Minds educators, and also something that parents can tap into too for ideas on what to do with their children each month. But it's within this model of the circle, so that that the idea is added to the circle, and then out from that comes the content, including songs, stories, movement, and craft. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about adding that central concept idea, and then we'll sort of work out from there? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. We can help each other through this.
Yeah.
So just in terms of the central idea, I was just thinking as you were talking, it's like a seeding. It's like you're planting your seed, a seed for the day or the seed for the month. It's a seed that will grow and grow and grow. And it's lovely to have in the seed. Of course, the seed has everything that it needs. If it becomes a big oak tree one day, it's got everything that it needs to become an oak tree. And in a way, I think what we look at the children, they're seeds. They've got everything they need to become who they are. But seeds need water and warmth and light and air. And I think that's, just looking at it, that's the educator's role, is to make sure, or the parent's role, to make sure that there's nourishment and water and air and environment so that this little seed can grow. So I think this notion again of the archetypal seed is in the center of the circle and in the center of the circle. So it's a seed that unfolds. And interestingly, while you were talking, I was also thinking about, isn't it funny how in the kind of Anglo world, we have assemblies at school when we could have circles. And
True.
assemblies is really, isn't it a kind of military picture of getting everybody to line up, all line up, be quiet, because I'm talking. Um, never in traditional society did that happen. If there was a meeting to happen, everyone sat on logs around under the tree or, whatever it was, you always sat in a circular way. And everyone, as we said, had equal voice. So what's in the central seeding of this plant or this circle are all the qualities that we know as planetary qualities, but you don't have to even think that way. You just have to think of all the qualities we're aware of, like, firstly, the four qualities of earth, water, air, and fire. And you can take that into your story and you can take that into your movement. I mean, even if you decided we're going to have an earth, water, air, fire movement circle, you could move in those different ways and that could inspire you. And this is the idea of this, is it actually acts as a solid skeleton for you to work from. So you can be free. Oh, I've covered it all, yeah? The planetary qualities are the Venus quality of loving and embracing and being gentle and nurturing, um, of being very brave, being very Mars-like, brave and strong and upright and courageous, of being playful like Mercury, playing around, being mischievous, being the naughty little imp. We need to have imps. We've got them inside us. They need to come out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we have to make room for them, being wise and ancient and, you know, much suffering and being able to carry the wisdom of centuries with you. So that kind of quality of feeling that children can really feel what that feels like, of being very clear and logical and straightforward, standing like that with a sword, and of being magical, all moody and magical, a bit like the moon. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of feeling of being, wow, I wonder what's going to happen now. We don't have logic to help us. It will be a mystery. So those qualities, if you kind of bear them in mind again as something to spring from, and then in a way you give the whole soul of the child and your own soul every possibility of quality play in a different way. And you experience a bit like all the actors that live within you. So you have a time to be strong and to stomp and you have a time to skip lightly and giggle and laugh. So those are the kind of things that we need to bear in mind when we're planning our circle. So that's kind of all in that sun, that golden sun place. And obviously, when you look at the season, I was just looking outside today, and the leaves on the tree outside my room are starting to really dance. And what it's telling me is that they're turning from now golden red into a browner color. They're getting looser. And so the looser they get, when the wind comes, they dance much more. They're much more mobile and agile. So imagine taking even that observation into your circle and talk about the leaves falling down and how they are so loose. And when they finally fall down, they fall down in spirals. If you ever watch them, they're actually shaped in such a way that they spiral down. So they don't just go clonk, they go in a beautiful, graceful way. So you could have landing down on the floor. For instance, if you want the children to sit down, you can all spiral down onto the floor like a little leaf and rest on the earth. Yeah? So those observations can inspire you in what kind of movement you can do with children that is directly related to the season. Yeah?
Lovely. I really like how, excuse me.
Yeah.
I really like how you started introducing the concept and idea as a seed. I've done something similar as we move into winter. We're not, we're not there yet. But in my current circle, I've introduced a winter song because we will soon be there, and I sort of wanted to,
Yeah.
put a little bit of that seed in to let it, stew and settle into the into the circle for a couple of weeks
Yeah.
before we get into all of our circle, all of our winter circle themes and ideas. So I just added one song, which the children might remember from last year. They might not. It might sort of bring up some imagination, and it did actually remind them of Jack Frost, and so that's sort of conversation started. And that's a little bit later in the season, around August, but it's definitely planting the seed. And I didn't feel guilty about adding a winter song to my autumn circle. I thought, no, it's time.
Yeah.
I've got to remind myself of the songs, and the children. It's good for the children to hear that little bit now. And as winter unfolds, we'll it'll build, and we'll get more songs. Maybe we'll learn a new one, or a couple of games or different rhymes or activities and crafts. So we're trying to build on it each year by sowing the seeds. So that's the core central idea or theme, and it can be anything. It doesn't have to be seasonal. But I really like how in the next the outer rim here, the inner ring, middle ring, shall we call it? You've got all the little elements that make up the circle time, and I really particularly like the conversation one because if I'm creating a circle routine, as a choreographer, for example, I'd like it to be that we sing this song, and then we do this action, and then we get up and do a little dance, and then we go and do some craft and tell a story. Like, happen in that order. I'm a bit like that. I like that routine, but always within that, someone always comes up with a conversation. Oh, did you know that on the weekend? And it might not even be related to the theme. It could just be anything. It could be, we had ice cream on the weekend, Jake. And I was, oh, okay, can we, let's get back to the songs. But no, that's all part of the interaction. That's being together, is that these conversations come up amongst it. And you've got improvise in there as well, which often happens. Sometimes oh, well, the other day we were doing Incy Wincy Spider in English, and I remembered that one of our children, school-age child, speaks Spanish mainly at home. So I said, oh, do you know, it's a pretty common song. Do you know how to do that one in Spanish? And she did, and that was great. And then she went back to school, and and her brother, who's younger, much younger, was still with me. And I said, oh, Oogie, I can't remember the, I didn't learn it properly in Spanish. Do you know it in Spanish? And not, I was sort of okay if he didn't. And he said, yeah, he can do it, because he had heard his sister do it. He had that confidence, and he did it for us in Spanish. And was really wonderful. I still don't know it myself. I know it's Insi Winsi Aranya. Aranya is the spider, and
Ah, yeah.
that's where I cut out. But it was really great that he could take the lead from his big sister in doing the Spanish version for us. And yeah, so shall we go? Maybe you could just take us through each of the elements in this middle
Yeah,
ring that usually form part of a circle
yeah,
routine.
yeah. And I'm going to start off by saying there's something missing, and you've just told me what it is.
What is it?
And what it is languages. I
Oh,
think
sure.
this is a real time. Of course, we should have all the languages. And, we should, as much as we possibly can, at least learn one Aboriginal song for children, like Inane or anything that we can find, because it's through language that we actually feel the soul of the people. So when you speak in Spanish, you feel a bit Spanish inside yourself, or Italian, and Chinese. So I think we should definitely, and I will change that, Jake. Thank you. I'm going to change that slide and put languages.
Okay.
And if there's one child in your circle who speaks something other than English, my God, that is a gift that cannot be ignored. So even if you have to learn something or get the mother to bring in something or father, languages are an ideal thing to bring into that middle circle there. So thank you for that. That's what's missing. And then, I'm always willing. These things are as living as they need to be. They're never fixed in concrete. So they need to change and adapt as we learn more. All right. So I'll just start off with um, some very basic things like the circle is about individuals within a group. So sometimes there are things that are happening in the whole group. The whole group's moving to the left and going around in a clockwise direction or whatever, or you've got some children stepping forward and some children stepping back. So depending on their age, obviously you've got to be a little bit older to manage that. But you've got individuals and a group, and you always have to remember that as an educator, that you're not just working with a group. You've got individuals there. So both of these things matter. And then if we go down to the bottom, rhythm, and I don't know, can you see my cursor when I move? No, on this?
No,
It's
I'll
probably
move my
yours.
cursor.
Okay,
Yeah, rhythm.
that's great. Yeah. Rhythm and repetition and flow that's an essential part of the circle. It's on the right hand bottom corner, you see the breathing circle. It's a circle that breathes. It doesn't only go in one way, and it's not got only one intensity. It's got a rhythm, it's musical, it's got repetition. Children love, oh, we're back to that song again. We did it at the beginning. We're going to end with it. There's repetition. Some children love certain songs and they want you to sing them again and again and again. And I think educators need to always be patient with that and say, well, it's like they need some more food for their souls. So repeat it. And then there's a flow. And I think it's a bit, you were talking about a choreographer, being a choreographer.
Yeah.
You're also a presenter of a theatrical piece, let's say, an actor. And it's absolutely helpful if you keep the flow going. So obviously, if you do drop down into conversation, that's a different thing, but you're always holding that flow. And you know how if you're acting on stage and you lose your lines, there's this thing, the show must go on. So don't even let anybody know that you've lost your lines. Make up stuff until they come back. I remember we missed out a whole scene and we all looked at each other in a split second like, oh my gosh, what scene are we in now? We seem to have missed a whole Shakespearean scene. And somebody gave us a cue and we all leapt on that cue and then realized we'd missed a whole thing, like you missed the pages in your book.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like one split second, okay, this is where we are. And the show went on and nobody noticed we missed some critical points in the play.
I
So
use
it's
it.
really,
I use the term "fake it till you make it."
yeah,
You
exactly,
know?
exactly. So the children always need to be feeling held by you. And as long as you don't drop out, they won't drop out. Yeah, so even if you are singing your song, and I've seen you do it with your children, Jake, where you're singing and someone says, yeah, you know, Jack, we had da da da. And you kind of nod and look at them and you carry on singing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So, and that kind of carries everybody. We still stay in the magic of the circle. So those three things are really important. And then so I'm going to go up to the top again. They're the games. So you can play all kinds of games, dropping a letter behind somebody, all those lovely little circle games, you know. Even My Old Man or Old MacDonald, where you've got children going in, or you've got cats chasing around and mice going in and out the window, all of those kind of games. You can have rhymes. So you sang a song and now you can have a little poem. And poetry really carries children, and it's the most wonderful educator in terms of language, because you hear language in a musical way, in a way, when it's poetic. Conversation, as you were talking about, let's chat about what happened today when we were at the park, or what happened yesterday. Anybody that wants to pick up something, you can, or teacher can, the educator can bring up something. Always music, must have music. And if you sing, that's beautiful. If you play an instrument, that's even wonderful. If you have percussion instruments that you hand out at a certain time, and then everybody plays and shakes, I love that, because I've seen also in your playgroup in the park how you've got little toddlers of 1 year sitting there shaking a rattle, and everybody can participate in that, which is a very special thing. Singing, and as you say, singing brings your breathing into harmony. It helps you breathe properly. And children are still learning to breathe. For the first 6, 7 years, they're still actually learning to breathe. You also breathe together. And there's something about building community in a deep way when you actually sing together. It brings you in harmony with each other. And then the improvisation, which you've spoken about. So you'll sing a song and you'll say, Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on that farm he had what? And then children can say, he had a dog. Oh, yeah, okay. And so you can give them lots of opportunities. You don't have to do everything. You need to find a place where children can improvise, or can even suggest a song themselves, or do something fun. Maybe do a little movement and we all follow the movement. That's also fun. We're improvising then. And then finally, in this circle, movements and gestures. We have a couple of issues that we don't do in our modern life, and it really, being somebody who's really involved in movement and dance, and I just know how important it is for me at my stage of life. It makes me even more aware of it for younger children. There are things like children don't often have reason to lift up their arms. Adults hardly ever do that. And I often say, and people laugh at me, if you've got a high shelf, it's great because you're actually stretching your body up and reaching up. If you've got to hang the washing up, thank God you don't just always put it in the dryer. You hang it up on a line. Um, all these things are so important that have to do with actually lifting your arms above your head, because when you do that, firstly, you expand the rib cage, you open up the heart, and you open up your experience of what the light is all about. So, one of the things is, when do you notice what's happening in the sky? When you're going for a walk, are you looking at your feet? Are you looking at the floor? Are you looking at where you don't want to fall? You're looking kind of down and around you. But when do you actually go, oh, look at the sky, look at the clouds today? Do you notice the clouds? So looking up and moving up seems to be something we have all got a deficit in. And our shoulders are kind of hanging forward and we feel the weight pushing down on us. So I think lots of movements, we need to counter that by doing lots of bright, sparkly movements, joyful movements, waving our hands in the air, um, going over the rainbow, all of that, being a big world, holding the big world above you, uh, sparkling and shooting off stars and crackers, big fountains erupting, being a butterfly that flies out. So you can just see how, yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I see children do, when I say, let's go fly like a bird, they do a bird with their elbows stuck to their sides. Have you seen that?
Oh,
And
yeah.
they kind of do this. This is flapping. That is not flapping. This is flapping. Big whole arm movements. Yeah. So, and even in my adult classes of dance, I say, imagine a big bubble of air under your armpit and you can't put your arm down. And so you're flying there with big bubbles under your armpit. So I think that's really, really important, is to learn how to connect with what's above your body. Yeah. So it's really about the heart forces and the light forces. And then there's small and big. So we're used to being small, but sometimes we're not that refined. So small movements are lovely, like your incy wincy spider. That's quite a thing to do, right?
Hmm.
So all little movements, little finger movements. Yeah, exactly. All of those things. And then those lovely little traditional movements about, you know, here is the church and here is the steeple. Yeah. Here are the doors and there are all the people. These kind of things are really quite fun. All kinds of things. My favorite always is This Is the Boat, the golden boat. So just stand up so you
Hmm.
can see it. And we make a boat, and for children even to do that with their fingers is quite a stretch. It doesn't happen straight away. So it doesn't matter how they do it. Obviously, you just carry on and they do what they can. But if you do, this is the boat, the golden boat that sails the silvery seas. And these are the oars, all ivory white, that lift and dip, that sails the boat, the golden boat, over the silvery seas. And these are the 10 little ferrymen who come running along to pick up the oars, all ivory white, that lift and dip, that sails the boat. That's big movement, sails the boat over the silvery seas. So we can make all kinds of hand games, finger games, but there's a wealth of stuff that you can get online, or we can give access to, which shows you with little drawings how to use these finger movements. So important, small movements. Small movements develop the brain, like
Yeah.
knitting develops knitted thoughts. Small movements develop the brain. So before you talk about getting clever, bright children, give them lots of things to knit and play with their fingers, and little rhymes. And then big and strong. I often feel people are afraid of big and strong. You know, a lot of educators like their children to be quiet. So, Jake, what do you do? How do you manage? I know that you're not reticent. I know a lot of educators are. We don't want to make them wild because then they'll go running and screaming all over the place. How do you manage big, strong movements in your center?
Yeah, I understand the fear in that you might lose control of the children, and yeah, maybe you'll do a running thing, and then they won't stop running, or they'll get erratic, or they'll run off. It's possible, but you'll always have a grounding song, or a winding down song, or something to bring the children back. And in a lot of classes, so in school, from class 1 all the way through class 6 in primary school, they often do the clapping.
Yeah.
So maybe there'll be 3 claps, and then the children have to copy the claps. Or a very common one was class for listening, and then the children have to repeat back, yes, we're listening, like that. And you can even do it to individual children. Sarah, are you listening? And she'll say, yes, miss, I'm listening, like that. But for younger age children, I always find that the original song that I sing, which is we can make a circle round like the sun, which that's the song I sing every day to bring everyone together. It's not my song, it's a song that's out there
Yeah.
to bring everyone together into the circle, sing it every day. And as soon as you sing it, all the children rush to it. It's quite calming. If we're doing a racy kind of game or big, strong movements and I start to lose the children, I'll just say, okay, we We can make a circle round like the sun, or we can make a circle all holding hands. And the holding hands really brings them together. You know, they have to hold hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
The holding hands is really good to actually form the circle. So sometimes with very young children, you might say circle and they'll just sit on the ground wherever, or in a rectangle
Yeah.
or a square. But if you're holding hands, then you actually form a beautiful circle, and then you can let go and start your circle, knowing that you're in a beautiful circle. The other one is a similar. If I'm playing the ukulele, which I get a bit carried away with sometimes. I quite like it. I play the drunken sailor, and the kids love it. With percussion, and it gets faster and faster, and it's great fun. But afterwards, they do become drunken sailors, so I have to tone it right back, and I often end up just finger picking Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I say, okay, there's a quiet one now. And if they're still going, I say, oh, no, this is a quiet song now. Let's do a quiet movement, and it gradually brings them down.
Yeah.
And I try not to torture them by going really strong and then really soft. I just sort of,
Yes.
but
Gradually.
like you're saying, strong and soft, big and small. It's about playing with these polarities, the opposites, and then when you play with them, then this idea of opposites becomes much more known. You can embody what opposite is. I mean, there's a children's book, and it talks about opposites in terms of a hard couch or a soft couch. And I've always read it thinking, I don't think the kids are going to get this. It's really,
No.
one of the pictures was a couple together, married, or one lady on her own, single. I was like, that's a bit harsh, married or single as an opposite. So I really didn't think they were. I didn't think that was a
That's weird.
fair
Yeah.
opposite. Yeah, it was a Pride and Prejudice opposites book. Anyway, but in the
Yeah.
circle, you can bring in the quality of opposites, like you're saying, with small and big, strong and soft, high and low, and then they can go, oh, I see, we were doing fast and now we're doing slow, or we were doing loud and now we're doing soft, and they can really sense that and feel it and embody that quality, which is where the deeper learning comes in. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have to talk about it, you just do it, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I think what you're saying also just reminds me of an essential thing, which is movement is either expanding or contracting. So what you're talking about is, okay, we're going like this, and we're all over the place, and we're having fun, and we're a bit drunk, and then we come back together again. Yeah. And it can be things like the minute you do touch your body or whatever, whatever you do, you're actually starting to calm down. You're coming in because you're contracting. You go out, you go out, you go out, you go out, and then it's like breathing. So the idea of countering, I think, is really good. Go out until you can't do it anymore. Now you need to come back in again. But this is what you are designing underneath it and choreographing. So expansion and contraction. So it's breathing. You can't just keep breathing out and out and out. You're going to have no breath anymore. So you have to sit down and take a deep breath or whatever it is. I think that's really important. And I think knowing that if you know that after all this drunken dance, there's going to be a time of restoration, really, and reflection, then you're actually holding that in your consciousness. It's not, it is there. So even while the wildness is going on, you're not losing yourself. You're not drunk. You know that you're going to be hauling it back in again. And I think that's what makes it safe for everybody as well. That children feel that they're still held even if they're going all over the place. I think it's really important to let them do that, because if we as human beings have to express ourselves in every way, so isn't it a good thing to provide it in a safe way? If I need to have a tantrum, I mean, I have little mini tantrums in my dance practice, and it can be shaking and rattling, and I can't tell you what a release it is. I can feel all the cells in my body saying, oh, got rid of that lot. Yeah. And I have a safe tantrum. Nobody gets hurt, nobody gets screamed at, and I'm able to move my body in a very fast way, kind of trembling way, and shake it out. So, and children also, often I find little boys struggle in kindergartens because there's too much soft stuff. There's not enough stomping and digging and hammering and all of that. And I think, and there seems to be maybe a tendency to go for the more feminine way. And I think it does have to do with the nurturing quality of educators often, is to have the soft way. But I think it's a wonderful thing if the women, if they are running the show, that they get into woodwork, that they get into fixing fences. And I can't tell you how the children loved me doing things like that. We would be out in the garden building a fence together, and they'd all have hammer and nails, and they'd be helping me. And I had a lot of boys and some girls helping me, and it didn't matter who was there, but they really needed and wanted it. And they wanted heavy adult spades to dig holes. They didn't want these baby spades. So I think big, strong movements are another area where I'd say we need to pay attention there, and not just be all polite. And, you know, it's not about being polite, it's about giving expression to all the parts of being human. Yes, I think
Thanks, Carol.
that's, yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything, but I think
Well,
we've kind of, yeah,
yeah, we've gone round the circle. We've
yes,
done the circle, and I think what I'm hearing from me is that it's important to have a plan of your circle,
yeah,
so that
yeah,
you're, you know, you don't have to incorporate everything in this example, but you're putting elements of the key ingredients in there, and that you're breathing, the breathing in and breathing out. You're not expecting the
mhm,
children to sit for too long. We're getting up
yes,
and you're shaking your sillies out, and then you might do another quieter task, and then you might
mm,
breathing. But it's about moving with the flow, and having a plan, and being okay that the plan might not work. It might
absolutely,
you might introduce something which just sends the children off, to all four corners of the park, and that's too early on. So you just keep that one for the end. Keep that one for the end, and then that's the end of the circle. Everyone's dissipated. Yeah.
exactly.
But so what we're going to do now, Carol, I'm just going to switch cameras in a minute, and we will just co-create a little plan right here. Is that okay with you?
That's fine. I just
Okay.
wanted you to note that the outer circle has got all these arrows, and
Yeah.
that's really the movement of the circle and the people within the circle. So you move in the whole circle, move out the whole circle, or you work in pairs, or you go around each other. So that's really, or you go in and out of each other. So that's simply what that is. Yeah, that's fine.
Nice, nice. So yeah, this is an example that we're just coming out of. So I'm just finishing up my autumn circle. So using this idea of introducing a central theme, and then having some examples of the different elements, and then some movement, we'll just write this down on this image that I've got. Carol, you won't be able to see it, but the viewers will now. And so it's just an example of a very quick,
Okay.
yeah. So in the middle,
Okay.
I'm going to add autumn, because we're just
Yeah.
finishing up with autumn. And what I'll do is I'll write in some key words that we think of for autumn. So leaves is definitely one of them.
Warm colors
Oh
of
yeah.
leaves. It's all the warmth. And it's the sun saying goodbye in the plants. So you just think of everything to do with the sun. It's golden, orange, red. That's what you see. The sun is never blue. It's always the warm colors.
Yeah, I love that idea of it's the last of the summer sun, isn't it? It's like the last of the sun just trapped in the leaf, and then it's just fading away. And I
Yeah,
like that. And
absolutely true.
yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
last person at the party to leave, and you have a
Yes.
good old conversation. But
But I will be back.
yeah, and the light is often quite different in
Yes.
autumn. Oh, people often think of the wind too.
Yes.
Windy
Definitely.
days. It does the pruning for us. Windy. Oh, different colors here, just random colors. Windy and light, leaves, warmth, sun, all in this big picture called autumn. And
And
we sorry,
rain.
rain
And
too.
rain
Sure.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lovely. Rain. And I'll just add that we're not sticking to the Anglo seasons. It's just there are 8 Wurundjeri seasons, which are all really magnificent and have their own
Yeah.
qualities, and actually build that sense of connection to the place. There are 6 Boonwurrung seasons, and it's really great to learn more about that, get into a deeper field. I'm just using the autumn because we're all quite familiar with that.
Yeah.
So autumn, I want to add, where do I start? I've got to add some, we need to bring people together. So I'd call that a bringing together song. Yeah. I'll write that into the next little
Just as
thing.
I think something that I'd love to add, Jake, because I'm so inspired by it. It's a time of becoming more inward.
Oh, okay.
It's a time where things fall to the earth. So they're not just rising up, they're falling down. And, you know, some people say, oh dear, autumn, okay, it's going to be cold and I'm sad and, oh, this is really boring. I want summer. And so to come to terms with that, to become at ease with there is a time for things to slow down and warm up the earth so that something new can be born one day. And so, you know, that song that I learned and I sing often is that the leaves fall down without regret. You know, there isn't the sadness necessarily, but there's a falling down, and it's a gentle falling down. So just that image I think is quite inspiring about things kind of dying off and falling down. Um, we have to bring metaphors to the children that help them in the future as adults deal with things coming down, coming off the height of joy or whatever it is, or a breakup in a relationship. You know, we're thinking constantly of what we're planting here.
Is this song, do you remember the song you taught us in your class? And when I fall, that one? Let me fall down like a leaf gracefully. That one?
Yeah,
And when I
exactly.
rise, let me rise up
Rise up
like
the
a
bird,
bird flying
faithfully.
free, faithfully. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's gold. Yes. Okay. So let's talk about, we can add some
Okay.
songs
Yeah.
into the mix. There's a lovely one, When I Fall.
Mm.
Just as examples. So
Yes.
so I'll write songs up here. Here we go. This one's broken. This one, songs. And so we're talking about falling gracefully,
Yeah.
coming inward. Yeah. So when I fall
And
would be a nice
the
one.
yeah, and you know, always the sense of humor. So that other song about 5 little leaves, so bright and gay, were dancing on a tree one day. Brother wind blew in from town, and 5 little leaves came tumbling down, or 1 little leaf came tumbling down. And it's this bright and gay, like I could imagine children wearing red and orange and yellow capes or dresses or aprons and just dancing and being a little bit cheeky, you know, that they're bright and gay. And then Brother Wind comes into town and 1 little leaf comes tumbling down.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So,
I'm going to use that song. I haven't done that song myself. The one we usually do
oh,
is Come Little Leaves. So come little leaves
oh
of
yeah,
the wind one day, come over meadows with me and play. Put on your dresses of red and gold, for the autumn's here and the days grow cold.
yeah,
And I brought that one up because at that point is when we start moving, and I will often give the children a silk cloth,
yeah,
and actually it doesn't have to be silk cloth. You know, the silk cloths get
yeah,
torn, and we're down to scarves
yeah.
there was a pillowcase. We dyed a pillowcase the other day, and that worked out okay. So yeah, anything that children can fly around,
Yeah,
and then you are more likely to encourage the arm movement that we're talking about. So,
exactly.
so I guess what I'm saying
In
is,
fact, that's a very good point, is to use silks and to use streamers, to use balloons and kites. So in a way, Jake, what you're coming to, I think, is that as the leaves are falling down, so we're doing movements that rise us up again. So we counter the feeling of everything coming down by rising up and flying with the wind. Yeah. So really using that as an image, as a metaphor for being able to rise up beyond.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
great.
lovely.
So in this example, we have three songs here, which would work well
Hmm.
together in covering
Hmm.
what we're talking about. We have When I Fall. That's an introduction to the quality of autumn.
Of
Um,
fall.
we've
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got 5 little leaves, so it's really good to do some finger counting or
Yeah,
rhyme. Yep, so it's lovely.
there you go.
And then we've got the Come Little Leaves song for movement. So
Yes,
yeah, so that's just three of.
good start.
It's a good start. Yeah, I mean, if you just did
Fabulous.
that, that's the way to go.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Start small.
yeah, that's right. Yes, that's
Yeah,
small, and that starts this program that we're working on is to have these little um, elements or content that you can put into a circle, which gets the ball rolling. So
yeah,
that if you had these songs going, the 5 little leaves, When I Fall, and Come Little Leaves, and then that could, and some movement around there, that could move towards a story and craft. Yeah. So
yeah,
what I'm trying to get at is at the end of this circle, with all you have the inward songs and the outward songs and the movement, and then it's ideal that once all the movements happened, you can come back into a circle and a story can unfold. Um, and for the story, I'm going to put that in the outer rim, if you like. The
yeah.
one that I've been using is the Apple Star, because
Ah, yeah.
yeah, the Apple Star, or similarly, the Little Red House, with no doors, no windows, but a star inside. So
Yeah,
I started autumn with the Little Red House, because it's like a riddle, and a child goes on a journey to find a little red house with no doors, no windows, but a star hidden inside. And they meet 3 people, the usual story, which is another program. Um, and anyway, it ends up, the child finds the apple. It falls from the tree with a song, and the child takes the apple home, and mum cuts it just right. If you cut an apple midway, then you find the apple in the star hidden inside. Um, and then, so I told that for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and then when that was getting a little dry, we moved on to how did the apple get its star, and that started as a seed. As when the baby apple tree looked up into the night sky, it saw the stars shining high above and wished it could have one, and tried to reach up. So we say, oh, kids, can you reach up to the stars? And they try and reach, and no, they can't. But the apple tried and tried, and it tried really hard for a whole year, went through the seasons, and still couldn't reach. Autumn fairy came flying by and saw that the tree was unhappy, and said, I can help you. I'll go into the night skies where I'm from, and I'll bring you a basket of stars, but it might take me a little while. In that time, sorry, I'm telling you the whole story. In that time, the apple tree grew apples and was so happy with its apples, it forgot all about the stars. So the the autumn fairy put the star into the apple for a child who, from our first story, comes by, picks up the apple, takes it home, and finds the star inside. So both stories are linked, and
yeah.
the children picked that up without me mentioning that, which is really nice. And it sort of works from this, you can tell the same story quite a few different ways. You can even tell it from another character's point of view, like from
Yeah.
the autumn fairy's point of view. So
Uh-huh.
so you
Yeah.
really just need one kind of big story, which is connected to your
Yes.
central theme, which you can
Yes.
then weave in. Yeah. And then the last part of the circle time program will be adding craft in there. So you've done the circle, you've pulled children together, you've done the songs and some movement and all the other elements that come up. Everyone comes together for the story, and then that leads into some craft. And if it's within the same theme, then it really builds a complete package. And so the craft for me at this time of year was the leaf rubbing. So the leaves that we were singing about, and that were in the story with the songs, we can get one of those leaves and do a leaf rubbing on the paper. and we made a video about that. You use watercolor and beeswax, and it's a really lovely craft, very simple for all ages. And so that sort of completes the package. And what I found the wonderful thing that happens is the circle time routine might go for 20 to 30 minutes, depending. And then you've got your story, which is just a 5-minute story. But the craft can go on all day. You know, you might introduce the craft in that morning, but then the children might go and play, but then you might come back to it in the afternoon. And I've noticed that the children will sing the songs, and they'll tell stories, or the stories will become part of their play in the afternoon when we revisit the craft. And so although I'm trying to say that although the circle time routine is usually like a 20 to 30 minute routine, it then, like a ripple, reverberates throughout the day and through the week. And that's really nice to see. So it's worth putting the effort to come up with a plan, to have this complete package to unpack as you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I just love how you've described that, Jake. I think of the educator's observation of what transpires afterwards, to just get that, you get a kind of feedback loop about what's working in your children. And, you know, you will see them enacting, as you said, the story, or even looking for things in the park that are related to the story or related to a song or whatever. So you just see what integrated beings they are and how they thrive with this kind of multifaceted presentation in this little seeding in the circle. So I think that's really beautiful. And I think just one more thing is that there's nothing to stop you doing all these little songs and rhymes and everything, and then you tell a story, and even within the story, one of those songs is repeated. And then the actual song gets embedded in a bigger imagination. And so there's nothing to stop you, you know, like you were saying, you can tell the story from the fairy's point of view or from the little child's point of view. You can look at it in so many ways, and the more you do that, even I would say the better, because you are providing a multifaceted experience from multifaceted points of view. And for the teachers, I know as an educator and a parent that if I'm engaged in this work, I get nourished, I get fulfilled by doing this. And my observation of the children is just confirmed again and again that we're going in the right direction, or what can I do differently that will help lead me on. So it becomes a very symbiotic relationship. Yeah, great.
Lovely.
I love your ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the idea of a circle time program, which we're working on, is to have some example of a key theme or idea, and then unpack it with examples. Not too many, because we want other people to come up with their own, but just to get the ball rolling, so that there's a theme, the songs, the story on the outer rim, and craft and movement suggestions within that too. And that will follow the months in which we can do the Anglo seasons or Indigenous seasons, or other festivals, other wonderful festivals that happen throughout the year. And it can really frame the year for the children who aren't working on a calendar. They're not working on the 28th of May. They're experiencing time as a natural event. And it's really nice to enter into that space with them. But thank you, Carol. I think this has given people a really wonderful dive into this diagram that you've created for us, and I really appreciate these images to help me guide my planning. And I hope that educators watching and students watching will be able to have a true go at creating a circle time routine. And if you need help, just stay tuned, and we'll be putting up lots more ideas, key central ideas and themes that which people can try at home. So it's exciting times. Yeah.
Lovely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Carol.
Okay.
Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you. You too, Jack. See you soon.